Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk to you about boundaries. There's a very common problem that I've noticed a lot of people have when it comes to their boundaries. And this problem is they don't communicate their boundaries. It's kind of insane that this is as common as it is because it's such an easy issue to rectify. You just need to communicate your boundaries, but so few people actually do. And there's a whole myriad of reasons for this. Maybe they're afraid of doing it. They feel nervous and anxiety over even the thought of having that conversation. They're afraid of creating conflict, or they even believe that conflict will be created when they explain their boundaries to other people. I mean, they lack confidence. There's a myriad of things that could be affecting people from wanting to do this. But it really is something that you should learn to become good at sooner rather than later, because your relationships are dependent upon how well you communicate your boundaries. It's pretty much like integral to creating healthy relationships with the people you care about. If you never explain to them how you wish to be treated and how you don't like being treated, they're not going to know. People aren't mind readers. Like, people just usually assume if you don't complain, if you don't say anything about the way they're treating you, then you're okay with it. That's usually how people operate. So until you say something, until you communicate that, hey, this is not how you like to be treated, people are going to assume that everything is just fine and dandy. So you really ought to get good at communicating your boundaries. And there is a sort of rule that I've created for communicating boundaries that may be helpful for many of you to think about as well. And this rule is, if conflict is created when you explain a boundary to someone, that may give you some insight into whether or not this other person should actually deserve a good spot in your life. Now, obviously, this rule is not hard and fast, like there are going to be plenty of outliers for it. But for the most part, if somebody creates conflict from you just explaining how you wish to be treated to them, like if they have a problem with that, that's not good. Like, right? Why would they be getting mad at you for you just telling them, hey, I don't like being treated in that way? Like, if they blow up over it, is that really someone you want to include in your life? But like I said, there will be some cases where it could be an outlier. Maybe it's a family member you actually care about and they just aren't good with their emotions at all, so they take it personally, even though it's not a personal thing. You're just telling them, hey, don't treat me that way. I don't like it. It doesn't mean they're a bad person or anything. It's just you saying, hey, look, this is a boundary for me. That's it. Like, they shouldn't take offense over it. But I do understand that people who haven't really worked on themselves, they do tend to take offense to boundaries being brought up because, yeah, people will take it personally. So that's another tip. It's in your best interest to tell them, hey, look, this has nothing to do with you. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying I don't like being treated in that way. That's it. Like, you're not a crappy human being for having treated me in that way in the past. I'm just saying, please don't do it going forward. Like, make sure you're telling them it's not like a character flaw that they have. It will probably help it go over a lot better. Because, yeah, for the most part, if somebody really gets mad at you explaining a boundary, that person could potentially be toxic. So it's just something to keep in mind. But like I said, it's not a hard and fast rule per se. It kind of does depend on how much inner work someone has put in. But it can give you insight. If they are always getting mad when you communicate your boundaries, especially if they're a romantic partner, that is not a good sign. Like, they should have the mental maturity, emotional maturity, to be able to listen and say, oh crap, I didn't know that you didn't like that. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to treat you in that way because I wasn't even aware that you didn't appreciate that. Going forward, I'm not going to treat you in that way. That's what a mature person will do, because they'll realize it has nothing to do with them. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just you telling them how you wish to be treated. So there you go, guys. Get good at communicating your boundaries. You just don't want to run into that issue where you never communicate them and then you build up all this resentment with other people because they're going to continue treating you in the ways you don't enjoy because you're not telling them that you don't like that. Like, don't let that happen to you. It's such an easy problem to rectify. You just need to communicate honestly and authentically and tell them that it has nothing to do with them. It's literally just something that you don't like. You don't appreciate being treated that way, and you want them to not do that going forward. Now, That's going to probably go over well for most boundaries that aren't huge. But obviously if somebody's like really mistreating you, if they're like abusing you, there will be situations where you should think, do I even need to bring this up? Like, if the way they're treating me is horrible enough, should I just kick them out of my life? Because yeah, you don't want to tolerate like physical abuse or even verbal abuse that's consistent. If they're consistently bringing you down and talking, or should say, they're just like yelling at you all the time and being vindictive and rude to you, why do you want to keep them around? So there will be some cases where you should think, if you really feel afraid of bringing up a boundary because this person has a history of like just blowing up at you, do you really want to keep them around? So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. But anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this video, because it's just, this really is rather easy. In theory, I get, I mean, it's not super easy to do, but it is, I mean, amongst all the problems we have, this is one that we have a lot of control with. So you really should work on this so that you're not holding yourself back with your relationships because you're afraid to communicate. So I'm going to stop the video here. I truly hope you enjoyed this one. If you like content like this, be sure to subscribe for more. Otherwise, throw a like and a comment for the algorithm to help me out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Arrivederci!